That's right.
What is going on? I want to welcome you to From Half Court for today, Thursday, May 25th, 2023, also known as the 26th anniversary of when my mother birthed thee. I am your host, Sean Murphy,
Happy
alongside my guy, the savior, the hero of the day, my guy,
Hey, listen, brother. Welcome to you. Happy birthday.
Hey.
I'm sitting here feeling as if I was running the stream. Not welcome to you. Thank you for
Hey, I
having me on.
appreciate you welcoming me to this podcast, man.
Thank you for having me on. Like I'm grateful for you.
Dude, of course. I'm just appreciative. So a little backstory.
No, Sean, it's your birthday. Listen, brother,
I'm
cleared the
grateful,
deck
man.
for you, man. I just want to say a few words. I'm gonna hijack your stream to say this one, bro. You're Look, man, listen, Sean, I'm appreciative of you. I'm appreciative of our paths crossing. I'm grateful for everything you've done to help me grow as a content creator, as a Pistons fan, as well as professionally. And I appreciate the fact that you've been like every step of the way since we've started this kind of Woodward Pistons thing. You've kind of seen the vision, you've been loyal to it, you've been dedicated to it, you've helped me grow on that end. But I've seen you absolutely dominate, man. Just NBA coverage, Pistons coverage. I've seen you it's just your enthusiasm. And beyond that, the personality of it all. So it's like, listen, I just behind the scenes, I know a lot of people, whether they see us do content together or not, I've been through some health challenges. People don't know. Sean was there. Sean, Steve, a couple other people were really there. It's more than just content. It's more than just if there's a check or money or anything. These are people who've shown that they're people first. And so I just wanted to take a moment on your birthday, brother,
Thank you, man.
to just make sure I told you thank you. I'm grateful for you and love you, Brody.
Hey,
All right.
I
Stream
am
is giving back now.
I am grateful for you and to you for many reasons. You've helped me not only grow in the content side of things, not only are you a big reason as to why From Half Court is where it is today, but you've just helped me grow as a person too. It's like you're my big brother with a different mother, a mother with a little more melanin than the other one. But in all
But
seriousness,
my brother nonetheless.
yeah, a brother nonetheless. And it's just, I love this crew we have. I love, I love the team that we're working with. I also just
Yes, sir.
grateful.
Shout out, Jeff.
Yeah, shout out Jeff, 100%. Shout out Jeff and Troy. The reason why you're getting,
Troy.
yeah, this is a little bit of a different pod than usual. So, little backstory. I went to record our podcast, and we did record it, the entirety of the podcast. And apparently, my dumb self, I don't know if it was on my end, I don't know if it was on the recording software's end, but it's just a straight hour of just us talking with no audio. And I tweeted about it, just saying like, hey, like crap, you know what I mean? Like, no podcast this week. And this guy right here goes, my guy, it's your birthday. Let's do some content together. I'm like, thank you. Thank you. The pod lives on.
Bro.
And I'm kind of
That's
glad
right.
that we're
Got my
having it this
office
way,
shirt
though.
on.
Oh, I love the shirt. Oh, I
Yes.
love the shirt.
Ready for
Dunder
business.
Mifflin, people, persons, paper, people. Anyway, that's a whole other tangent I could go down.
Hey, bro, we gotta watch that later for your birthday, like on the table talk.
Oh, Kool-Aid, this is a can of worms we have not opened. I've seen The Office through at least 20 times. And I'm talking, my brother and I were on this show before it got popular. We were called weird for watching this show when we were in middle
My
school.
brother too.
And so when it became cool, we were like, wait,
Where did y'all come from, right?
like you're laughing with me now? Like, what the heck? And so,
Dude.
yeah, I love it. But anyway, Kool-Aid, I'm also glad in a sense that we're being able to record a different pod because there's been developments that have happened since Monday night as of we were recording. In fact, there was a report that came out the day after we recorded the pod that I really wish that we could have talked about, and I'm really glad that you're here to do it. But first, let me introduce the pod as a whole. Let's do the formalities. This is from Half Court each and every week, myself and normally two other of my friends. But today, my boy is joining me to talk about all things NBA basketball, Detroit Pistons. If you like this podcast, be sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you don't miss when we post, but also share with your friends and join in the conversation down below. But also, do me a favor, follow my guy Kool-Aid at Detroit Kool-Aid on all social media platforms, and don't miss any of the work that he's doing as the beat writer at Woodward Pistons and Woodward Sports. He does phenomenal coverage over there. So
Appreciate you, brother.
hey, it's just the truth, man. I've been proud of the coverage that you've done. And with that, with that expertise and wisdom and the background that you bring, it's a great perspective and an opportunity to have a conversation about some of the latest developments. And specifically, Dwayne Casey stepped down in the front office on April 7th. It is now May 25th. We're almost 2 months, into the coaching search. And according to Mark Stein, the Pistons allegedly made a big money offer to Monty Williams to be their next their next head coach, and reportedly Monty Williams declined and in favor instead decided to take the season off. Now, a lot of people saw that and immediately went, "We're cooked. We can't get a guy to come even if we're paying him a lot of money." But Kool-Aid, I think this could also just be simply the fact that this guy just got fired and might just want to take some time with his family, and heading into a new job within 2 weeks of getting fired and moving to an entirely different city and an entirely different program, hopping right back into the same horse you were just on for all intents and purposes and starting that circle over again. Even Mike Budenholzer is reportedly taking a break. Like, what were your thoughts? What were your reactions when you saw that report?
Let me put well first. I applaud the Pistons. I was hearing people say weird things like if they don't get the first overall pick, then they're just gonna give up. And we all talked about it. No, we want our organization. We were hoping those reports would come out. We want our organization to go out there and say, no, we're going to throw whatever it takes, even if this guy says no. So I do applaud the Pistons for that.
Yep.
It makes me a lot more comfortable about this coaching search. Not that the three candidates that are listed in Lee, Ali, and Collins are bad candidates, but I'm comfortable with them.
Right. Which another development, by the way, it seems like we're down to two now. It seems like Jaron Collins' name is no longer involved, which, you know me, a little bummed personally.
Yeah.
However, Charles Lee and Kevin Ollie are, reportedly the final two candidates. And for all intents and purposes, Kool-Aid, I mean, it seems like unless things change significantly, it seems like more than likely Kevin Ollie is going to be the next coach of the Detroit Pistons. And, given that, I understand that people, are upset that we didn't get the big name coach. But first of all, the fact that the Pistons went and made that big offer, that they took that swing, that they believe still in their young core, even though they didn't strike the jackpot on lottery night. There's, I think, again, like people, it's just a woe is me time because we lost the lottery. But in reality, they're going out and they're making their own luck.
Yeah, yep. And just to I guess further answer that Monty question, I don't think that this is a diss on the city. It's not a diss on the Pistons. It's not a diss on their young talent. Monty Williams is a very intelligent basketball mind, not just basketball coach. And if you ask him about this talent, he's talked about it. It's on wax. Go back and look at the press conferences. He likes this young talent here. It was reported very early on that he was going to take a year off. It was reported early on that him and Budenholzer might literally take a step back and reassess.
Yeah, the first report was
Mhm.
Monty Williams will be will have all sorts of interviews. So he'll be at the front of a lot of teams' lists. But the very first report was he just wants to be with his family. And when you get that type of tone, that doesn't sound like a coach that's super eager to hop right back on the horse. And, that doesn't have anything to do with the team. That's a personal decision.
Yep. Yep. And that's what I was. That's effectively it. I believe that to be able to make that type of an offer, he's listening, and that's showing respect to the organization.
Mhm.
Think about when he is ready to coach. Think about when he is ready to coach. So if they had good conversation, and this is what Troy Weaver does, right? He had conversation with the Knicks during the season before they ever got to the Jalen Duren trade, right? They had very, very good conversation. Then they were able to go back and do like some other sub deals and some other side things with them as well. The Knicks have been like very good partners with them. Troy has those types of repeat relationships and repeat conversations. I wouldn't be surprised if Monty Williams is a guy who, when this team takes that next step, so if they're ready and learning to compete now, maybe in a few years, if Lee or Ali don't work out, or if you see a position where Monty's ready to go and he's that kind of glue on top,
Right.
maybe you move in that direction.
I
I'm
mean,
not
let's
saying
be
that
honest.
that's the case, but
We've seen top teams right now. I mean, Monty was fired because of how close that circle is. I mean,
the
Kool-Aid,
Bucks.
before, like when we were talking about this offseason and this coaching search, Monty Williams never even entered my mind because I thought Phoenix would be out of their mind letting him on the market.
Bro.
Yet here we are. And somehow Doc Rivers is one of their finalists. They might have fired Monty Williams and said, "You know what? We want the guy who's lost the most game 7s in NBA history. That's who we want."
Bro, they would have more luck with Prison Mike.
You know what's his biggest problem on the team? The Dementors. Don't make me push you up against the wall, biatch. You know, I'm kidding. Oh my gosh, this podcast.
Dog,
Hey,
you think no one's gonna even know what you're talking about? But
oh,
oh my goodness.
the ones that do know are are just horrified right now. But anyway, in all
Purple
seriousness,
bandana.
you know, we know the reports that, you know, that Troy Weaver favors Kevin Ali.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that Tom Gores just made a big money offer to Monty Williams. And there were reports that Tom wasn't, you know, like, I think a lot of people essentially took a report from Jake Fisher and essentially summarized the sentence into Tom Gores didn't like the candidates. But I think in reality, I think what it is they have these young candidates that they like, that they're meeting with frequently as they're continuing to vet out the process. But ultimately, all along, Monty Williams was a part of their plan. And that's why they made the offer in the first place, if indeed true.
Look, I think that this organization has a lot of basketball minds in it. We talked about Tom Gores going from Yeah, we talked about Gores going from this owner who was very hands-on and thought he could bring what he's done successfully in the business world to the sports world. And he realized quickly he needs to start getting more basketball minds in here, like Arn Tellem, Ed Stefanski, who's still here, Coach Beeline, moving Casey to the front office. Like, I don't think people understand. These are, and there's more. There's scouts. Their front office and their scouts and their assistant coaches have continued to get picked clean. Who's the executive over for Phoenix Suns? Bartlestein, where did he come from?
Detroit.
Pistons, that's right.
Yep.
Detroit. These things happen all the time. We have like Malik Rose? And then they wound up, someone came and took him from the organization. We had I forget, there was a scout here and another organization just came and took him. I'm gonna go and get that list. Our front office has been stocked, our organization has been stocked full of basketball minds. And it feels like Gores now understands or believes that for him, business is go get the best minds. They will go and get me the best basketball. And I absolutely love that with him. And I like what the Pistons are doing overall with that. You know,
Right.
I know people are a little
I know people are like,
with Troy.
Yeah, I know people are like, who cares? Like that doesn't translate to the court. Well, it does. It just doesn't right away. And the reality of it is it already has transitioned to the court in the sense that they took the shift that they did. I know people are like, this team's been rebuilding for 15 years. And that argument is just false because that team was trying to win terribly for 15 years. And
Casey
was
hired to
directionless.
win now.
Yep.
Dwayne Casey was hired to win now. In his first year, what did he do? He made the playoffs. Right after that is when they decided, you know what? And
After
they
Blake
said,
got injured and Andre kept middling and, the team kind of already peaked that, they had the honest conversation. And once they brought in Weaver, that's really when the rebuild began. Listen, I know the pressure's on, but all the pieces are set for this team to take a step. And it seems like a big narrative. And I can't believe we have to keep having this conversation, is that people don't seem to think Cade Cunningham's a franchise star. And I'm like, are we just forgetting? Like, and again, it's cool. Like we've
well, I
had this
thought you was going somewhere else, and then you went there, and I'm just like, yeah, that
we've
one gets me, bro.
we've had the conversation so many different times. We've had soliloquies about this man's brilliance, but the narrative that this team is lacking franchise talent or franchise stars, like, I think Ivy and Cade both have the chance to be top 20 players in the league. I think Cade can be a top 5 player in the league.
There's nothing else for me to
Like
add to
flat
that.
out.
Like, I don't what do you want me to say? Like, that is one of the most bizarre things, Sean. We've sat here all year. You've even come on and done content with me. I'm about to get some other stuff started with the other network. I'm gonna have you involved with some stuff. But we've talked about it. Even we were covering Ivy versus Matthew, and like, what are people looking at? Like, I just don't understand it. I think that they're just not paying attention to the Pistons. And the way that people write it, like Rod Beard and I, we covered it on one of the pods. We read the Ringers ranking of Cade, and it was just like, yeah, we think he's going to be that guy, maybe someday, maybe, but right now he has, and like the things they listed as his like things wrong or things he has to get right or why he's kind of at this ranking and not higher was just like wrong stuff. They were like, defenders love to duck under the screen when he's in the mid range. Sean, one of the things we all know, I thought even casuals knew mid range Cade.
Like literally known as like one of the mid-range assassins in the league already. Like when he went on that tirade towards the end of his rookie season, like when he found out, oh yeah, I can get anywhere I want in the mid-range. And once he started doing that, it was like an entirely different game. And, again, and this is a point that we've made on the table talks. I don't think we talk about a whole lot here. When you want to see what teams or what people truly think about players, look at how they're being covered. Look at how they're being guarded, because like the truth always comes out in the scouting report. People love and respect and admire Russell Westbrook. Truth in the scouting report, Draymond's going to guard him from the charge circle when he's at the 3-point line. Truth comes out. Game 1, Kool-Aid. I was there. Cade's debut. First play, he was triple teamed. First play.
Sean, not his second year when people knew he was that deal. You said his rookie season.
His first play of his first season. Like, this was when he brought up the ball, and once he tried to make any type of move, Franz Wagner was like, no.
Them boys, and you know what? I was looking at his draft footage. I shared this on the other pod as well. And just listening to I forget who the reporter was that was talking about him when he was walking and he was like hugging his family, hugging Ashton and those guys. And she was just like, he was one of the most double team players, and he was one of the most clutch players in all of college basketball. Let's see if it carries over to the NBA. And game 1, play 1, they were what? Double and triple teaming him. And wait. I feel like he was clutch in that game too. I mean, he wound up being one of the more clutch players in the NBA in his rookie season.
Yep.
The stats are there. And I think that people, when they actually sit and look at the stats, it's one of those optical illusions to them, because you're like, well, we haven't really seen him play. We know that the wins aren't really there. We've kind of seen some players do some things before, not really pan out. Seeing Cade Cunningham and knowing the type of connector he is, knowing that I hear people from Terry Foster, who covered the Bad Boys, to Rod Beard, who covered some aspects of these Pistons teams, and talking to other people who cover like the Going to Work Pistons. Everyone is sitting here saying that Cade reminds them of Isaiah Thomas, bro. Let me
Yep.
spell it. Isiah, so people don't get that confused with Boston Celtic great Isaiah Thomas.
Yep.
Are we talking about the bad boy Isaiah Thomas who signed this here? I am ecstatic. But like that's something different, and I believe that it needs to get continued coverage. That's partly on us. That's partly on us. I think that the more that we cover it, the more that we put the actual facts, actual numbers, actual stats out
Well,
there, the actual what are the Pistons doing when he's actually on the court. Yeah,
right.
I think it helps at least some part, man.
Right.
But
And I think we do our best to shine a light on it. I think the
yeah,
reality of it is until he's actually back on the court and until, like he starts, like to have some form of like run, like I firmly believe next season we're going to be looking at Cade's performance in a similar light to how we looked at Tyrese Halliburton's, like this breakout player, like where did he come from? Like kind of like where like SGA was like a year or two ago, like before he really went to all team, because people thought SGA broke out this last year. No. Like SGA's been awesome for like 5 years. Like if you didn't know that, you just haven't been paying attention. But like, for Cade, like I really think
y'all
especially
made Sean go full Joker mode. Simon and
why so serious?
Because it's Cade Cunningham. I was like, oh, I know where Sean's going. And he said, people are underestimating Cade. I was like,
let's put a smile on that face.
But in all seriousness, with Cade, like with that ability to take that next step, like people forget the entire equation changes and doesn't work when you take out the cog that turns the wheel, the straw that stirs the drink. Everything with this team's progress hitches on Cade. Even if we got Wemby, they would only go so far if Cade wasn't in the lineup. Like,
man, Sean, I keep preaching that to people that Wemby would have been an accelerant to the flame.
yep.
He wouldn't have been just a log to keep it going, like where we're kind of picking now. We're picking like some logs. No, he would have been a straight up bombastic accelerant.
Right. He would have been a franchise player, but he would have been a franchise player alongside Cade.
There you go. There you go. That was just kind of being the maestro there. It's alongside Cade because of the type of player he is, because of the type of IQ he has, and because he actually knows the NBA now. You know what I'm saying? Like he understands certain aspects of this game that Wemby is still going to have to learn. They're sitting here saying that he's going to have to get tutelage from Tim Duncan. That he's going to be getting trained by people to know this game. And even then,
they have some good players in San Antonio too. They have like Keldon Johnson. Like they have some guys, but the reality of it is, Wemby is going, like, you think Cade got double teamed coming into the league? Like, with all due respect to Cade, like, Wemby's going to, like, when you have an 8-foot wingspan, you're just going to get different defense every single night. Like, that's just the way it is. But, that kind of it stirs like a great, segue to the next kind of looming thing. And obviously the draft. And, the Pistons, as of right now, are picking at 5. That is where the lottery landed us. And, there's been multiple theories of we could trade back, we could trade up, we could trade out. There's a lot of different avenues that we could go. And obviously James Edwards III did a great article of, breaking down some different trade scenarios. I would not be opposed of going and getting a proven player that could potentially be better than what we can get at 5. But I also wouldn't complain if we kept the pick either, because I do think there are players that can help us now. But with that, I want to know where you're at. And let's say the Pistons trade the pick. Who'd be on your wish list? And let's say if they keep the pick, who do you like?
I don't even know who's on the wish list, brother. Like I really don't.
I'll throw one name out there because this is in James's article. RJ Barrett.
You know what? I did hear that one. I wish I would have remembered that one when you asked, because that one was actually very, very intriguing.
It really is, man. like I know RJ Barrett has some limitations to his game. But you know how hidden those limitations are going to be when you have a guy like Cade who's going to put you in your spots to succeed?
That's the point of Cade Cunningham. I don't think people get that no more. kind of talent you put around him. I think Troy gets that. I think that's why he's kind of going and saying, hey, Bagley, hey, Wiseman. And if he says, hey, Barrett, I kind of get the idea now. Some of these guys were drafted and put in positions that they had the talent, but maybe not necessarily the fortitude mentally that Cade has, or the IQ, the connector ability, which is a very special thing. You try to identify it, you can't always. But RJ Barrett with Ivy and Cade,
With due respect to any of the guys
I
available
wouldn't
at
like
5,
that.
they don't have they're not RJ Barrett on the offensive end right now. RJ Barrett is comparable on the defensive end to all of them right now. And I would wager that none of those guys are going to end up being better on the offensive end than him going forward. Like, that's a guy where I feel like it's a win-win. I think that's better than what you can get at 5. Now, having said that, if we do end up staying at 5, I still like, it's not a terrible class. There's some solid pieces. This ain't a Jaden Ivey. Like, you're not getting a transcendent player here, but I think guys, I think guys like Jarris Walker, I love his floor and his upside, and his game, like, he just fits what the Pistons are about. Like, if you were just like gonna go at like look at a prospect, it's like, which one's a Piston? Like Jarris Walker, within 15 seconds of watching his footage, I was like, welcome to Detroit. Like, just for all intents and purposes. But like, let's say they keep the pick. Where's your mind at?
I, for some reason, have really, really, really liked the potential of Asar Thompson, but I have appreciated maybe a little bit more of the experience and kind of probably ready to go right now of like guys like Jarris Walker. I've liked Cameron Whitmore, but I think that Jarris Walker has a little bit more oomph to him. Jeff has been telling me, look at Taylor Hendricks, and I like him too. But Steve and I, man, we were kind of looking at what happens if the Pistons fall to 5, and when we went through some of these prospects, I don't know, man. Jarris and Asar were just two of the guys that I'm like, yo, I would love for the Pistons to just, if they fail, to be able to kind of take a flyer on them.
So I'm glad you brought up Asar, because he's, for me, he's been a mystery prospect for me personally, like a guy I want to dig into a little bit more. But I hear like it's very divisive. Like either this is people's guy, or people want to stay as far away as possible, and there's almost no in between. What's the, to you, what are the things that when you watch, Sir Thomas's game that makes you go, like, man, he'd be awesome? Because I know he's a great playmaker. I know you can't have enough playmakers in your lineup, but at the same time, there's guys available that I think that don't need the ball as much. And I think the more players in your lineup that can contribute but not need the ball, the better. That's just my opinion.
I agree with that. I like Asar because I believe he's still in a coachable position. I think that he's had a decent foundation, and a lot of people at that age are pushed to do certain things. It's almost like the AAU culture.
Right.
But similar to like Jaden Ivey's jump, I feel like Asar Thompson is like one of those students of the basketball game, like those Thompson twins. And what he brings to the table as kind of this versatile 3-and-D type wing, the ability to handle the ball, the ability to play make a little bit. He shows a little bit of that IQ. I think that it would allow him to mesh. Now, his shooting is something that scares me. It scares me, bro.
I hear, for all intents and purposes, that the jump shot of the Thompson twins is equivalent to hot dog water. It's plaguing both brothers. And listen, it can come with time. And if you think he's one of those guys that can work for it and really develop it, then I think we're all for it. But that kind of faces the question: are the Pistons in a position where we're still acquiring projects?
That's the thing. That's why I say with Asar, I like where the potential can go. And if you believe when you get him in for your workouts that, oh, it's a hitch here or there, or, oh, we know that if we put him on this type of a program or regiment, that we can get this out of him, then yeah, I believe that he's one of those guys that you look at 5. Jarris, like I said, is one of those guys, and Cameron, they're ready to go. they're kind of guys like Sadiq Bey, as a rookie, he came in and just looked more mature on the court. He was ready to go.
Right. And
That's
not
something I think they need right
right.
now, honestly.
And not to compare them as like players and play style. It's kind of like how, like
Yeah.
I know people look at Cam Whitmore and go, "Oh, Sadiq Bey." But like they're very different players. They're like, there is just an athletic component with Cam Whitmore that is, with all due respect to Sadiq,
boy.
is just
He'll
not
dunk
there.
in your head.
Yeah.
Two hands, whatever you want, he'll give it to you.
Yep. There's definitely a lot of upside. I know Cam Whitmore, I think, is technically the betting favorite to go 5 right now, and I know like he's kind of like the favorite there. He's another prospect I like as well, but I think the questions on the defensive end, I think, are kind of what troubles me a little bit there. I think he like obviously he has all the intangibles to be a 3-and-D wing, but like if we are going to take this next step, like as a franchise, like I think if we can get a player where that's built into their mentality, I think that's more of what a Troy Weaver prospect is. Like Cam Whitler, I know. Listen, man, like I get it. I love looking at the highlights, his jump. Like I get like just being tantalized by that. But I'm telling you, the teams who fall for that every time are the ones that are in the bottom of the lottery or are in the lottery each and every year. Like, that's just the way it is. Like, sometimes the jump isn't always what it seems. There's a lot of athletic kids who have come to the league. That's all I'm saying.
I do believe he has some skill and some touch, and that
sure.
does separate him just a little bit from some of those, but this team, man, they got punched in the mouth on defense, and we can't put it completely on the squad because they weren't healthy the whole season. And I've had to continue to check that from Terry to Rod to other people who have covered this game a lot longer than me. They're like, look, we know that there's going to be a lot of angry fans, but realistically, the team wasn't out there. So we have to honestly look at who they were when they had everybody. And when they had Stu and Duran, did it look good?
Right.
Ooh, did it look good? As Steve calls it, the double beef. I'm all for the Jarris Walker triple beef package.
Yeah.
I'm all for, because can you imagine certain lineups where they're honestly able to play them all together? I don't think people understand Jarris Walker he's pretty versatile. He's more like a 3-4 and less of like a 4-5, which is like Stewart.
Right.
He's a little bit more versatile, both offensively
36% from 3 in college. Like just a solid, dependable
player. He has
player.
more handles than he was able to show.
Mm-hmm.
I like Jarris Walker. Like, that's why you asked me the first two players. Jarris for the guy ready to go. Asar for the guy on potential in terms of the guys I think will be there.
Right. That makes sense. And, it's one of those picks where, you're not going to walk away on draft day and like pump your fist and go like, let's go. But like the reality of it is between this pick, between the upwards of $40 million in cap space that the Pistons have available this offseason, more realistically 30, because Alec Burks is going to, that's a contract that, I think Detroit plans on keeping unless they get some crazy opportunity. He's going to be in the starting lineup opening night, or not starting lineup, but he's going to be in the opening night roster.
Yeah.
Bojan on the other hand, Marvin Bagley on the other hand, James Wiseman on the other hand, I have no idea. I know they're under contract, but those are some of the chips. Those are some of the examples of the ways that Pistons can make some moves.
Yeah. Yeah, we talk about, not being surprised if Troy Weaver winds up with another first-round draft pick or even another lottery pick. And seriously, they have some pieces here that can get it done.
Yep.
Especially for some desperate teams that are looking in clear cap space like the Knicks were last year. We got back into the lottery and got several players that failed, man. We talking about how excited we were. Remember when we were talking about, can Jaden Ivey fall past the Kings at 4? Listen, I could see Troy Weaver. I could see some players dropping, and I was going to ask you this question next. I guess I'm just asking now, is there a player that you could see kind of dropping that's supposed to go in that top 4 that could potentially be there at 5, or even a player that falls kind of like Duran?
So if any player from that, from the top 3 is going to fall, it's going to be Brandon Miller. Because Scoot, I think all the question marks on him are not from a character standpoint, are not from a basketball standpoint. It's more so about, his physical limitations, or like will that get in the way? And I think a lot of the scouts believe the answer is no. And so I just can't see him falling to 5. But Brandon Miller, there's reports out there that he hasn't been interviewing the greatest. There's reports out there that he hasn't been in the greatest of shape. And, on top of, if he indeed isn't answering those questions the greatest about, what's going on with that, with that situation, there's going to be teams that are going to be careful about bringing him in. Now, at the same time, it also, scouts are reportedly saying it was almost a foregone conclusion that Charlotte was going to draft him, but at the same time, that was as of the combine. There's a lot of change that can happen between the combine and draft night. And, with Brandon Miller in particular, he's just a wild card to me. And I have no clue what to expect.
Yeah. And the Hornets, what is it, reported that they actually want to bring back Bridges? So
Yep.
that's where I was going. You got to think about this then. If Brandon Miller falls to 5, I almost feel like, say, book it. Troy Weaver's going to go get another draft pick.
Well, here's
It
another.
just makes too much. Can you imagine if Jarris Walker is sitting there at like 11, 13?
Or like at 8 or 9 or like, somewhere like a few picks down. Yeah, like it'd be interesting, man. Like here's another thing that I think fell under the radar a little bit as well. Portland got the number 3 overall pick. Like they rose, pretty high in the lottery. And a report suggests that it sounds like Portland is going to be trying to use that pick to go get an elite wing to put alongside Damian Lillard. Now, I know right off the bat, people are going to focus on, well, dang it, that means we're not going to be able to trade up. You're missing the bigger picture there, if that's your focus, because Kool-Aid, you know what I'm referring to, right? That could potentially affect Jeremy Grant's situation this offseason and potentially open the door even wider to come back to Detroit.
I was ready for
because
this.
if they get an elite wing, Jeremy Grant is suddenly going to need a new home. Probably.
How many people you think kind of missed the subtlety of that in the report? I saw it and I chuckled, and Terry Fawcett was like, he's not really for it, but even he was like, man, these reports, like I'm hearing these reports of Jeremy Grant potentially coming back to the Pistons.
Yeah.
That would be
I think there's some real smoke there, and I think when we traded him, the questions were, does he fit the timeline? Where is he at? Because he is like a guy in his late 20s. He is a guy that could potentially go to like a winning now team and be a contributor there. But he's also the type of guy that you want to build your franchise around, and especially if you're going to try to win games this upcoming season, he's going to help you win games. And so, I think Jeremy Grant gets a lot more hate for his tenure here than he truly deserves, because he came to Detroit at our lowest point as a franchise.
Yep, he did. And honestly, the most hope that we've had for our future.
And he balled.
It came with him.
And he balled.
Cade, Marvin Bagley, and let me not be unfair, Sadiq Bey. Okay, those 4 guys ball. I left him out in my pod, and somebody was like, "No, man, you forgot Sadiq." I'm like, okay, let me not forget 50 burgers Sadiq Bey, 50 Burger Bey. I'm sorry, okay, but those four guys, they balled out and they worked together. And what was awesome was seeing kind of Jeremy Grant be the closer for like the first 3 quarters that he was in those games, but in the last quarter, it was on Cade. But in some of those games where Cade was off, Jeremy Grant won that Boston game for us last year. Or that year last year.
Yep.
Jeremy Grant won that for us. You know what I mean? There was a couple games like that down the stretch. And when you see the growth that he had, the leaps that he had in his game with Portland, it only really confirmed what we were saying. Put talent around him. The usage and the roles and the positions and the conditions and these things that he was put in, it was not conducive for his game to continue to be efficient and effective. With a Jeremy Grant, and I think the most important thing that you needed to get with Jeremy Grant was just hierarchy. It
Yep.
wasn't fit. He already fits. He's a good IQ basketball player, but whose team is it? Same with kind of Ivy. Now
Yep.
I think Cade and Ivy are the people. If Jeremy Grant comes here, he's gonna get paid. But I think he understands it's as a certain role. You're gonna get your shots, but this is your job over here. This is Cade's team
Yeah,
now.
he's gonna
That's
like
that's how
when
it goes.
like he was the number one guy in the lineup when they were slowly implementing Cade back from injury. And if he comes back, I almost said when, but I mean when he comes back, like essentially I'm not saying I know anything, by the way. I'm just joking. But with like if he does come back, like this is a very different Cade Cunningham. Like this is a year 2, technically year 3, buffed up, like matured, like the way Cade even changed just from year 1 to like year 2 was insane. I can only imagine what it will be like to see him on media day in this, in the fall, just to see how he's evolved, because, I think this summer, I think he just missed the court, and I think he's just going to live on it this summer.
Getting the scratches. What we got? Transformers coming out with another movie this summer. I think that's what we're gonna see with Cade Cunningham, and it's crazy because we're talking about a guy who, when he hit his stride this year, it was like that 28, 8-8. When he hit his stride last year, it was like that 27, 7-7.
Mm-hmm.
What is it when he actually gets comfortable with 2 legs, bro? Because it's been on 1 leg. Like we haven't. We're talking about the fact that now he's no longer training and stressing a leg. He's just going out there and training to get better, bro. Like this, I don't know what we're gonna see,
Well,
honestly.
and again, he was doing the 27, 7-7. You bring up the shot. He did all of that shooting terribly from 3 because of the injury. You like, and all we keep hearing, by the way, from our conversations with Ashton, or with, like anything at all, about we don't talk about it much, but the only thing we hear, man, Cade's shot is looking incredible. And if that translates, which the confidence is not the issue. It's the confidence in his body and in his legs. The fact that he can feel that again, I'm telling you, man, I think he's going to have some bold prediction. Don't be surprised if Cade flirts with a 50-40-90. Or starts to begin flirting with a 50-40-90.
I believe in Cade Cunningham as a basketball player. I just do, man. I don't care what I've done, what I've seen, what I've played, what I've coached, or anything. I just like Cade Cunningham as a basketball player. You look at the IQ, you look at the way he plays the game, you look at the way he can shift an entire defense. You look at the way the defense knows. You got to pay attention to him. Those are little nuances to look at, and that's why I hope this team starts to really, really win, because that's when the accolades come. That's when the people start to really focus in and say, oh yeah, he actually does deserve to have this type of a credit attributed to him. He's just a heck of a basketball player, man.
Right.
It goes without saying.
Yeah.
I when I look at the type of player that I believe he can become, I do believe he can eventually be one of those guys that's putting up 30 plus points per game if he wanted to. It's just not the style of basketball that he plays. And with that injury, he spoke at the exit interviews. So maybe if this 3-point percentage, this stuff that he was talking about getting right at the exit interviews, if he gets that right, who knows what he's going to be putting up in terms of these points per game. But he did talk about, when he got to the NBA, along with kind of this stress fracture or whatever was going on in his leg, it kind of flattened his shot out. Now he has the ability to strengthen, build muscle right without worrying about fractures or injuries or pain, and get that shot kind of with the arch back on it.
And that was the thing, is that there were just nights like with his jump shot where, like, we were kind of even saying, like, is it fatigue? Is it, is it injury? Like, is there, like, is Cade playing at 100%? Because there was that flatness. Like whenever there was that problem and that flatness with a shot, it didn't look like a mechanical problem, because if you look at Cade's shot,
Look at the mid range. Just
that
butter.
like Cade Cunningham is what you would what you would build in a lab as your number 1 overall pick, as like a 6'6", Chris Paul for all intents and purposes. It wasn't the form. It was the fact that it was going flat and it was going just short. That tells you it's an injury problem. It's a body issue. And so the fact he's going to have 2 healthy feet under him, I mean, balance is like the most important thing in your shot, right?
Bro, he was dunking on people with one leg and pointing at him. I mean, I'm sorry, pointing at his fan behind the bench.
Still one of the dumbest ejections of all time, by the way. Like he got ejected for a freaking point.
I see you, Ashton and Cannon behind the bench.
Like we have LeBron doing full out like crying monologues on the court. But God forbid Cade does one of these. You're out of here.
Too much fun in Detroit.
Yeah, not gonna have it. Not allowed. But again, and with Ivy as well. I know we talk all the time about like his upside and how well he improved and things like that. I don't think we talk much about like his big picture potential, because we were talking quite a bit going into this season and throughout this season about, is he a guy? Will he translate? The conversation very quickly became, yeah, he'll translate. The question is just what level can he get to? And the thing for me, Kool-Aid, that makes me say that I think he can be a top 20 player in this league, it's not just the speed. It's not just the elite athleticism, because he already is the fastest player in the NBA. He already holds that title. But it's how much better he got quickly. Like, I'm talking like
answered all the questions.
Yep. Like if he keeps going in this type of pace and this type of progress, this can almost be a Ja Morant fell so Jaden Ivey could soar type of situation. Like for all intents and purposes, like he could get to that level. I firmly believe that.
Wait till he figures out the defense. I don't mean like correcting on his mistakes. I mean, when he's able to translate that offensive aggressiveness that we see, that aggressive he knows he can play confidently with on offense, wait till he knows he can play like that on defense. Like
he's got everything to be incredible on that end, dude.
He's saying that he's working on it. We all heard the comments of him saying, hey, this is what I'm trying to figure out. Went to Coach Beeline about midseason. So he said this is what he's going to be focusing on a lot this summer. But, bro.
And I'm sure he's going to bulk up, too. I'm sure his body will look a little different going into next season. But, like, he didn't start as, like, a Steph Curry where he looked like a middle schooler going to gym class. Like, this guy looked like a man, day one.
Yeah, with some pretty freakish athleticism. And it's what we were saying in speed, that he's going to have the ability and the opportunity to really just run through the middle of the paint and soar. I think he needs to work on learning how to finish better, kind of like through contact, learn how to finish, realistically know what you are when you're up in the air. There were some plays I think he deferred or tried to do a little bit too much when it's like, no, bro, go through them. But ultimately, I'm hoping that the Pistons and whoever the new coach is can kind of put Jaden Ivey in better positions. How many lobs did you see him catch?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, how many so our point guard, Killian during pick and roll, and then throw it to I'm about to say
that's Wade. The thing, man. All the averages
throw it to Ivy back door.
All the averages that Ivy had when he was generating his own offense, just wait till Cade's generating offense for him. Just
the gravity around Cade.
And you know what it is with Cade and Ivy? You know what it is that they have in common, and the thing that makes it, like, I know that makes me believe, I would bet is what makes you believe, yes, it's the talent, but it's the thing that you can't put on a box score. It's basketball character and character as a whole. Like, you talk about getting the right, we talk all the time about getting, the right people, but we always wonder what that means. Mm-hmm. It's when you're faced with a situation where you have a player where it's like, man, this guy's an elite talent, but he has serious character issues. Like John Morant, he has all the talent in the world. He could carry the Memphis Grizzlies to be a borderline dynasty in this league if he was fully dialed in, if he was fully focused on basketball. You talk about like franchise, even Zion Williamson, another one. People question how hard he works. They don't question who he is as a person. He's beloved as a person. People question his want to get on the court. Jaden Ivey and Cade Cunningham, not only do you not have questions about them as people and like high character off the court as far as who they are as human beings, but when you talk about basketball character, those are two guys that want to play every single night, as many minutes as they can. And when they're not on the court, they want to put in work to get better. Like, that is who they are. And like, when you have that on top of the inherent talent and athleticism and the intangibles and the things that you just can't teach, I ain't putting a limit on you. Until you prove me otherwise, I am not putting a limit on you. And that is the thing I saw with Jaden Ivey this season that I was hoping to see, and we saw it in spades.
Yep. And I'm glad you said that aspect of not putting a limit on him, because Jaden Ivey, honestly, we had some questions just because we didn't see it proficiently in college, and we knew that the Pistons were lacking these types of tools in a player next to Cade Cunningham that could also play make, that could also hit the three, catch and shoot, as well as off the dribble. And could they create their own offense when Cade Cunningham was double teamed? We talk about how much the offense stagnated and the fact that Jeremy Grant wasn't necessarily the best ISO player to receive those passes from Cade Cunningham in the double team. We needed a player that you knew as soon as the ball hits his hands, he's not going to have any confidence issues like Killian Hayes sometimes can show. He wasn't going to hitch like sometimes Sadiq Bey can show. He was going to go out there and be another alpha. He was going to be a guy that go out there and say, I probably should have had the ball in my hands first, but, because I'm a good teammate and I love Cade, that's what they needed. And when he went out there and showed that he can also play make and shoot, that changed everything. Like just from basketball standpoint, like I love the Pistons, but just from a basketball standpoint, I am so excited to just watch these two play and figure it out next year. Like I just want to see that. Well, it's worth the price of admission for me, man.
Well, it's not even just like how good he was from the 3-point line. It was the fact that towards the end of the season, he was adding the mid-range and hitting consistently from that area too. And to your point, you says it changes everything. And the reason why it does is because when you are a 3-level scorer, when you are a multi-utility player, when you are a guy who isn't just boxed into this one thing, this ain't Julius Randle, where it's like,
he's going left.
This is a situation where if Jaden Ivey can truly be unpredictable and be scary in all three areas, that's what contains superstars, all-stars. Those are the things that make you playing on All-Star Saturday night.
It's what I'll continue. Bro, you remember when he was drafted, and I told people, look, his speed will have him running around people. He's going to be jumping off a trampoline. That's what NBA space is to players like him. And I put out a gauntlet. It was like, okay, defenses shade him into the middle. They shade him into that middle. They shade him in the floaters. They shade him in the mid-range shots, because if you're a defense, you know he can dunk on your head. You know he can finish at the rim. He's shown that he can get a little hot on three, shade him into the middle. So it was like, look, if he's coming to the NBA, he has to be able to take this step. And it's honestly what set Dwayne Wade apart.
Yep.
To see that growth throughout the season and just seeing him honestly not just look like a student of it, but somebody confidently taking it. Like that.
He's never going to get that Russell Westbrook treatment. With all due respect to Russ, like as good of a player as he was at his peak, and even as good as he was in the playoffs, his shot has gotten to the point where we saw teams try it. We saw teams like leave him wide open at 3. We saw them give him that coverage. And you know what we saw? He made them pay a lot. And so when you bring that into the equation, and then Cade Cunningham into the equation, and then whatever you can get with $30 million of cap space, and then also the other pieces to the table, a brand new, energized, young head coach that's going to be in this locker room, like, I know
with
people.
Jalen Duren.
Yeah, I know. That's a whole. We literally could do an entire podcast on Jalen Duren, and we might have to at some point because, I mean, good.
Let's talk about him on Table Talk.
Yeah, we talk about not having limits on people. Definition. But anyway, like when you look at the picture, I know people are like, you're only as good as the last thing you do. And like all the pundits are like, oof, it's rough in Detroit right now. But in reality, look at this. Like, here's what I'll say. Come back to me after free agency. Come back to me after the first month of the season. And then tell me where you think this team's at. Because I'll tell you right now, you're going to be singing a different tune.
I agree with that. You know, if Bojan Bogdanovic at all is be believed from that Hoops Hype article, he stated that Cade was the straw that stirred the drink, like we continue to state. So that's going to be a huge blow. All the offense was connected to and through him. And he said, though, that Troy Weaver is going to get busy this offseason. And one of the things I know they've been aiming to do, and this is why Jaden Ivey was so important, was to make sure that they could have more options. Not that Cade isn't your connector, but that more people could effectively facilitate. You know, so this season, I believe in what Bojan Bogdanovic is saying, because why do you re-up here when you don't have to? Why do you trust the end of your career to the Detroit Pistons just if you don't believe Troy Weaver? And why put it out there? You know, people ask, why did you sign for, you know, this money and this extra time when you could have went to another contender or somewhere or asked them to trade you? He said, because of what Troy Weaver told me. Look, we never hear what Troy Weaver's doing. Whenever you hear something, oh, this is what Troy Weaver wants, right? He wanted DeAndre Ayton last year, right? Then we got Jalen Duren, and all the fans were, yay, Jalen Duren. You know, it's we never hear it. We were all like, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Like,
and people are talking about
hear the,
and real quick, people are talking about like I heard someone say, if the Pistons don't move forward this season, Troy Weaver will lose his job. It's like, am I the only one that forgot that he just signed an extension? Like 4 months ago? Like, am I the only one that forgot that, like, yes, he had to write a letter to the fans because of how bad of a season it was. Like, when you have one of the worst records in franchise history, inherently you have to write a letter to the fans. But by no means do I think you have an owner in Tom Gores whose confidence is waning in his general manager at all. And again, this is from the letter from Troy Weaver, so straight from the source himself. Overall, our players have overwhelmingly embraced the core principle of going to work and competing every night. We are in an excellent spot to upgrade our roster this offseason. We've positioned ourselves for another high draft choice in this year's draft. We have a favorable salary cap position, and will continue to talk with teams and evaluate trade opportunities as they present themselves. And the one big word in there is positioned, because they're not saying that they're tanking. However, towards the end of the season, when players were injured, they did choose to go the route of letting young players develop, even if it meant losing games.
They said that when Cade went down, they shifted everything, man. Sitting in those press conference rooms, it's different, man.
How many times do we hear, we're not judging by wins and losses? We're not judging by wins and losses.
Jaden Ivey and Jalen Duren were their objects of affection this year, man. This was everything their attention was focused on. They said that they had to make sure they got Jaden Ivey right, and Jalen Duren making sure that they had what they thought they had in him. I honestly believe that Jalen Duren has the opportunity to make the biggest leap out of any Detroit Piston that's currently on the roster between this year and next year. But it's just been amazing to kind of see these guys go, see this, this coaching staff kind of believe in them and try to get these guys everything they need. Because when Cade goes down, if you want to know if Bojan is lying or not, they basically said, well, there goes the playbook. Let's get these guys ready now. Now we actually have the space and the time. And they say it, that they positioned themselves.
Yep.
So it's by design. The basketball minds by design are I think, aptly leading the Pistons. And this is why you have a Troy Weaver here. This is why you have these minds here. You know why? Because weird things happen to Detroit, Sean.
Yep.
Weird things happen to the Pistons. We fall in the lotteries. We fall in the drafts. You know what I'm saying? Players get injured. People we want to sign go to other places. So what do you have to do? You have to get a GM, you have to get a front office, you have to get basketball minds in here that can overcome those things.
Yeah, that can go make their own luck, that can go overcome those
Just like you
adversities.
said.
Yep. And yes, people like, yes, Detroit isn't the most desirable, free agent destination from just the city inherently. Like people like players, they're going to choose the warmer weather cities. Like that's just how it is. However, when you look at basketball situations, when you look at players that want to win, when you look at young players that can see where can I go as a young player and succeed. Oh, I could go play with Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey, or you could go to Houston where they might have James Harden. They might trade for Chris Paul again. They might trade Jalen Green. They might not. Kevin Porter Jr. might be a franchise player. We don't know what the is going on there. But what we do know is that at the very least, like there is a foundation in place. I know all the time people are like, you guys are just blowing the whistle, like being like just like blowing smoke and being positive. Kool-Aid, if this was terrible, I would be screaming to blow it up and start it over and to do it with as much kerosene and dynamite as possible. But I am so confident in what we're doing right now.
I agree with you, brother. I mean, it's what we've asked for. Tear it down to the studs. This is what it looks like. I know that the Pistons haven't been what we wanted them to be in some years, but this is the first time since Troy Weaver's come in. This is the first time the Pistons have rebuilt since the Detroit Bad Boy Pistons. That's a long time. They have not built like this in a long time. They drafted Isaiah Thomas. They sucked for a couple years, bro. Horribly. It was not pretty. Then they drafted Joe Dumars after like 3 seasons. Guess what? They still were not the Bad Boy Championship Pistons yet. They weren't. They took a little bit of a jump, but they weren't what we would have expected when you think about the Detroit Bad Boys. So when you look at this restore that is built on kind of the same principles, identifying some of these same players, they've actually gotten in some of their pieces a little bit faster and have themselves in position to honestly find themselves in towards winning, kind of like along the same lines, like within the same window that they did. It was about 4 to 5 years after they drafted Isaiah Thomas that the Pistons could say that they were like playoff contenders, not even learning to compete, playoff contenders. That's where they were then. So it's like if the Pistons can get there within the next 2 to 3 years, then they're on the same path from the time they drafted Cade to the time they're really like playoff contenders, like actually 5th seed, 4th seed, battling for 2nd seed. It's the same path, man. It's just all perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, the picture will look much clearer when the blanks are filled, when the rest of the roster is different. Like, one thing's for sure. Rodney Magruder won't be a Piston next year. Corey Joseph won't be a Piston next year. Amadou Diallo more than likely won't be a Piston next year. Change is coming. And the big thing, and another thing that's coming as well, I firmly believe, are wins. I firmly believe within the next couple of years, this team will make a play-in tournament and will eventually make a playoff run. Whether it's like a first round, like this team will in the next couple of years, in my opinion, be ready to make the playoffs.
I believe that, man. I'm looking forward to them really proving that they're a team on the rise this coming season.
Yep.
I really do. I don't want to underestimate what the draft picks that they have gotten, aren't. Why would we be excited about Wemby as the number 1 pick and then just act as if we don't have, so we missed out on that. But we still have a number 1 pick on this team. We still have 2 other lottery picks from this previous draft on the squad. Let's get to work.
And it's not like Wemby's going to be the only great NBA player ever for the next 20 years. And, newsflash, he will not win a title every single season. In fact, man, pray like count your blessings that you only have to play him twice a year and that you don't have to get through Wemby to get to the finals. Count your blessings. Like if you're not going to get him, at least have him on the other conference. At least get him as far away from you as possible. Seriously.
Get him out the Central, man. That would have been crazy if he was here in the Central. That would have been depressing. That would have been compounding things.
Yeah, that would have been a moment where we would be having that's when we would have been a little more cynical. But
trade us to a different division.
We would like to request a geographical trade. But Kool-Aid, this was a true treat. Thank you so much for coming by, man. It was great to talk about, it's great to talk about basketball. Fun to talk about these updates with you. I truly believe, I feel like within the next week, I think we'll know who the next coach is. I think within the next couple of weeks, we'll get a better idea of what the plan is. And within the next couple of months, we're going to have a much clearer picture of what the vision is. And I'm excited for it.
I'm excited. I can't wait, man. Brother, thank you for having me. And
Hey,
happy birthday. Happy birthday
you,
to my bro. Hey, it's as great as you as always, man. I hope your day continues to be a good one.
I appreciate you, man. And thank you all so much for tuning in and listening and supporting From Half Court. Be sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and be sure to share with your friends. Join in the conversation down below, but also follow my guy Kool-Aid on social media at Detroit Kool-Aid and myself at Sean Half Court if you're feeling generous enough to do so. But that is going to do it for today's episode, folks. Thank you for listening. We'll catch you guys next time from Half Court. Be sure you're subscribed.